Next Curve.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Next Curve's reThink webcast and our Analyst Corner. I'm Leonard Lee, Executive Analyst at Next Curve. And in this episode of Silicon Futures, we're going to cover something really interesting, this topic of Gen AI monetization. Why did I laugh? Anyway, I'm joined by Karl Freund, who is the founder and principal analyst at Cambrian-AI Research, LLC, and he is a leading analyst covering the semiconductor industry. And we're collaborating together in this series that really focuses on AI, right? And Karl, welcome, my friend.
Thank you so much, Leonard. Pleasure to be here, especially for this episode, because this is kind of what kicked it off. If you recall, we were at a conference and we had a disagreement, I think, over lunch about the profitability of AI, and you had some good points, and I thought I had some good points. We said, well, let's just debate this online.
And you know what? What I really enjoy about our conversations together, number one, they're respectful. Number two, you're approaching, I think, this whole AI opportunity, looking at with a certain kind of lens, and I come at it with a different one. And I don't think it's that necessarily either side is right or wrong. It's that the synthesis of that comes out of that debate on the topics surfaces learning and hopefully a ground truth that people aren't talking about. And I think that's the value of having these conversations. And I'm really I feel fortunate to be able to have these conversations with you and document them in these
and they're fun
podcasts. It's going to be cool. So monetization. But first off, Happy New Year, because we haven't talked
Happy New Year
to each other since the beginning of the new year here, which is 2024 for folks who don't
got through it.
What year it is. So, hey, 10 years from now, people are going to go, I wonder when they recorded this. It's like 2024. Yeah. So, hey, monetization.
Yeah.
Why don't we start off with what is it that we mean by monetization? Because, I do a lot of research in the 5G world, and we've been talking about 5G monetization for quite a while, and it's literally gone nowhere. And I think it fundamentally, one of the fundamental reasons is people have really failed to generally come to terms with what that actually means, or at least come to a practical, meaningful definition of what that means. So, I mean, in your mind, what does monetization mean?
Well, I think about two phases. One, what are the profit pools, right? Where are there potential for generating significant profits? The second part is realizing those profits, and then you have to separate it out, because you've got folks like Nvidia, which is now trading over $600 a share. Their shareholders are definitely profiting by AI, even though they're not using it, right?
Yeah.
But somebody's using it. I saw that Zuckerberg said he would have $1 billion worth of H100s by the end of the year, right? And of course, AMD's A100s, a lot of anticipation about that product, and now people are actually receiving them. So there's that side. There's the infrastructure side. But then the reason you're buying all this infrastructure is because you want to do something cool. You want to do something that's going to make you some money.
Yeah.
And that kind of separates between the cloud service providers. They don't care if you're successful with AI. Well, they do, but their financials don't, because all they care about is that you reserve and use large instances of GPUs, right?
For a long time.
For a long time, right? So what are you doing with all those cycles? And that's where the enterprises come in.
Yeah.
And I've got some examples that IBM was kind enough to share at a conference back in November, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I missed out on that. So
yeah, I wish you could have been there, because it was really eye-opening. They had Rob Thomas, their chief commercial officer, talking about the customer experiences they've helped enable through IBM, of course, IBM Consulting, right? And it's all about WatsonX, right?
Right.
And so if you kind of just look past the branding of WatsonX and our stuff is better and so forth, what IBM has accomplished is truly amazing. And the examples they've given from hundreds of customer engagements are like, whoa, way off the charts. If you'll allow me, I can just share some of those.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
The way they describe it, Leonard, is they say that, look, there's lots of opportunity out there, but the low-hanging fruit really resides in three buckets, right? One is digital labor, the second is customer care, and the third is application modernization, especially important to IBM because they have a lot of Zs out there with a lot of COBOL nobody knows how to maintain. But it's a much bigger market segment beyond IBM Z. So if you look at digital labor, they're using it internally. They've created something they call Ask HR, which allows every manager and every employee to get answers to questions that they really would have to call HR, send an email to HR, and the person have to get that email, do some research, get back to them with what the results are that are specific to their situation. What they've seen is a 40% improvement in HR efficiency. And I talked to some of the managers in the room, and they go, "No, this is real. We're using this every day: talent acquisition, performance management, employee data management, employee communications, and learning and event management." So this is basically, they've taken these large language models and they have fine-tuned it on IBM HR, which is quite complex and use, right? And they've taken that repository of information and fine-tuned the AI model, the large language model that people are using. This is not a what-if project. Every manager and every employee in IBM is using this today. In customer care, get this, they're realizing 90% or greater than 90% of contact center cases actually be able to resolve by AI without human interaction. 50% of them require a customer service rep to get on the phone. So 90% of them can be handled automatically. And this is really based on retrieval augmented generation. If your audience is not familiar with that, there's a great article written by Rick Merritt, who's now with Nvidia. Great article, blog he wrote about RAG, terrible name.
Right.
Basically, you're retrieving hard facts to refine the answers of a large language model. So that's what this is based on. Pretty amazing. In application modernization, they're seeing a 60% productivity gain. And it's beyond just IBM Z. The example they gave was Java. Right? There's lots of versions of Java out there, but nobody changes their Java code to take advantage of the new versions of Java as it comes along.
Right.
And so you end up with new legacy code. Right?
Yeah.
Hard to maintain. They can do about 90% conversion rate at least to upgrade old Java code to the latest version of Java without human interaction. That's pretty cool. And so, I mean, those are some key examples of what they're able to do. And that's just in those three areas.
Right.
They went on to talk about other areas which filled an incredible slide of detail, more detail than I can share right now. But they're seeing, anywhere from 90% improvement up to 90% improvement in productivity, and ROI that is, really, literally at 120%.
Nice.
Whoa, 120%?
Yeah.
And so I get why people are skeptical, right? Because we went through a decade of big data, the returns on which are debatable. And then we've gone through 4 years of 5G, the return on investments are debatable. And so I get why people are skeptical. But this is all hard data.
Actually, I don't think people are skeptical probably enough. I think they're becoming skeptical and will become more skeptical because here's the thing. I guess I still have the question why I wanted to start off our conversation with what is monetization. Those are I think maybe some margin improvements that for a business. But then I would ask IBM if they would indulge me at some time in the future. How were these large language models applied? Because they're not going to typically be, like you mentioned, RAG. The actual application holistically is going to be much more than just the LLM. The LLM has a function, right? It may be the interface, but it's going to architecturally is going to transcend the actual Gen AI technology itself. But the question is, what about monetization? Because monetization is about the profit pools that you're talking about. And what I think is encouraging about what you're outlining here is that there's end market value, but the question is how is IBM monetizing it? How are others monetizing it to create a sustainable tooling business for themselves that they are then selling to their end customers? And I think that's where we need to get to very quickly. And in my observation, that's still the big question mark out there, right?
Well,
Even though I think these are good endpoints, these are good endpoint proof cases or case studies. Maybe they're not proof cases yet, but case studies to exhibit that there is end market value. Because if you don't have that end market value, there isn't a pool of monetization to be had by to sustain all these GPUs that are AI HPC platforms and systems that are being sold in the market right now. I mean, Meta, I get, but the question is, are they using all of those GPUs and H100 HDX systems to train models, or are they using it fundamentally because their business relies on it? Recommender engines and all these other things. There are all these other applications that have nothing to do with Gen AI, where they need capacity and capability.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I would say there's an unspoken truth here, and that is a lot of this monetization will come from laying off of people. I'm sorry, somebody's got to say it, right? If I can do my customer service work, let's say you're Dell or Lenovo or HP, and you've got all these products that somebody has to really understand the details so that when somebody asks a question about the use of those products, you can give a useful answer. And if you can do that with 90% fewer people, then you're going to lay people off, right? And let's face it, that is monetization right there. You're saving money at the bottom line. And hopefully you can find other work for those people. They can do more creative, interesting jobs if they're able to be retrained. But that's where a big monetization is coming from.
This is why this is such an important discussion we're having right now, because we're coming at it from a completely different perspective, right? Which is fine. It's just that it's good to hear how you're thinking about it and how certain audiences are maybe viewing monetization. Again, focusing on the nature of monetization. The way I look at it is I'm looking at it from the standpoint from the bottom up. And monetization meaning, okay, you're selling a certain foundational technology into the market. How is the ecosystem generating profit up the stack, all the way up to, let's say, this chatbot? Okay, so everybody has to be able to make money. Otherwise, the ecosystem and that stack is not viable. And then the thing that's going to substantiate the value of that ecosystem, that value chain, is going to be all the stuff that you're talking about, which is the value proposition of the constellation of Gen AI enabled applications that drive the ability to get rid of people to improve, operational efficiency and efficacy and all those things. And so that's kind of how I view it. But are you telling me that in your view, you're also looking at it from the standpoint of the end user and how they enhance their own profit? That's also what you include in the monetization equation.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right.
And it's not just laying off people, right? I mean, if you can get product to market much faster,
operational efficacy.
I'm a chip guy, right?
Yeah.
And they're using AI to get chips to market 6 months faster than they could have without AI.
Yeah.
And that's going to increase the acceleration of new chips, of new thinking functions for the end user and consumer.
Yeah.
That drives profitability. That drives monetization right there. If you can get the job done with one engineer instead of 6 engineers for the layout of a complex chip before you submit the tape out to your foundry, gosh, you just made a lot of money. Now again, that's going to take labor out, and what people are finding is you've got a lot of experience. Let's stick with this one example for a moment. You've got a lot of experienced engineers and designers that know how to do this stuff, been doing it for decades. And you've got them doing mundane tasks. Well, if you can free them up, they could help younger, newer engineers come up to speed, become more productive more quickly, and add more value to the company than they could doing place and route.
But you know what? Here's I just had a conversation about this. Here's the thing: if you're automating the mundane tasks, which it could be the opportunities for learning for, let's say, less experienced members of the team, then how does the team learn? How do the less experienced folks build their foundation of knowledge and experience?
Yeah, well,
it's all been automated out. I think
there are some examples, right? I mean, there's Cadence, Synopsys, and Nvidia and others have used AI to answer that question. And so what they've done is they've put a chatbot that has been trained on hundreds and hundreds of chip projects, and the experience of those chip projects. And they can answer the question directly without the use of the experienced, engineer, designers, time who can focus on the next generation time. Now, I'll give you an example, right? Everybody knows that Nvidia didn't do a good job of communicating this, but they let their investors know they're doubling their roadmap, right? So where they used to have like 6 chips in their roadmap, now they have 12. They didn't double their engineering staff. Right? What they're doing is they're harvesting the benefits of AI to allow them to increase the frequency of new products, to allow them to shorten the design time of new products and lower the cost of that design time.
Sure.
Right? I mean, if they'd come out and Wall Street, hey, we're doubling our engineering staff so we can do a better job of competing with AMD and Intel, they would have gotten hammered, right? Because the expenses aren't sustainable, aren't justifiable. But if they can improve productivity and double their product roadmap, it's like, whoa, you gotta be kidding. So there's billions of dollars of profitability right there.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So monetization is complex, and the bottom line is we have to figure out which lens we're using at any particular time in our conversation and make sure we're all talking the same thing. Because it could be just even in this conversation, we didn't script it, right? We just pushed the play button or record button. And I didn't ask you these questions. These are live revelations that I'm getting from Karl Freund here at the moment. But that's the thing that I think has been really evident. And as folks who are listening to the podcast, I think that's the important thing. As I mentioned before with 5G and other technologies, as we talked about monetization, the benefits, the value proposition, we're all over the map. Even with 5G, wow, it was like, we're not going to get anywhere if we continue to talk past each other. And I think that's exactly what's happening with AI, generative AI, more specifically. And in order to tune into what's valuable along the lines of what you're saying, we need to have those constructive, aligned, and fine-tuned,
Fine-tuning.
definitions that we're working with, right?
Yeah.
And tuning it into the particular thread and type of conversations that we're having. So that's the key takeaway I'm getting out of our chat. And I think that's probably a good first step for everyone out there who's listening to this podcast, that we need to get that straight because if we don't, then there's going to be a lot of dazed and confused people wandering in this cloud of generative AI.
Well, I mean, we've had a checkered history, right? I remember when IBM had engaged. Speaking of IBM, they had an engagement with MD Anderson cancer centers, right? And it was a big project. It was $1 billion project. Yeah. And it was all focused on analytics. First of all, you have to create the data lakes, and then you have to do the analytics. And two or 3 years into the project, MD Anderson just canceled it. So we're not getting anywhere, right? You contrast that what's happening now with AI. A year ago, we didn't have RAG, right? And so we had everybody's like, "Oh my God, these things are hallucinating. Yeah. They're giving BS answers to my questions." Yeah. And the answer is, yeah, they are. But RAG comes along within 9 months of the launch of ChatGPT. RAG comes along, and everybody's using RAG. Right?
Yeah, they're using RAG, but I think we need to be clear here. There's still also very few commercial deployments. In fact, I was on a recent AI, one of the companies that you mentioned, technical sessions. And there was a poll put out. A very small number of companies actually having anything in production. Most are in in discovery and in POC, and that reflects what that company is actually seeing. And so, in terms of RAG, I don't think RAG resolves hallucination issues entirely. It can create localized hallucinations, it's in a way a kind of a lazy way of getting to a better generative AI or a chatbot than, let's say, if you fine-tuned a model, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this trade-off that is out there at the moment, but RAG it's just a quick and dirty way. You just use kind of like a chatbot framework and then instantiate a couple, like a vector or graph database, and then stitch that stuff together. There's patterns for that. And so I think going forward, as we look at that in particular, we just have to be look at it with higher scrutiny. But more importantly, when we think about monetization, how do these new models and ways of applying generative AI, technologies enable services that can be monetized? Because that, I think, even before we get to this the IBM use cases, there's still the problem of, can anybody that's providing AI, these Gen AI based services, make any money? And I think that's still a question. I mean, there are some companies out there that were last year put into this Gen AI bucket. You know how they try to create all these acronyms like FANG and MANTA and all this stuff? They created this bundle of company. We're not seeing exponential growth, and they're far from profitable. So when we talk about monetization down at that level, how is any benefit up here translating to sustaining the companies that are closer to the chip guys? At the moment, the chip companies are making all the money, right? But then can their market be sustained by a broader, end market, end user value proposition? And I think that has to accelerate very quickly. Otherwise, everything else underneath it is not going to last very long.
Yeah. Well, I think this stuff isn't simple. It's not easy. It's not.
It is.
Push button and money comes out, right? And that's where IBM's a good example, and there's many others. Oracle's doing the similar kind of work,
Right.
Helping clients understand this is the workflow, this is the pipeline you're going to have to go through.
Yeah.
Turn
Right.
this piece of silicon into dollar bills at the end, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the probably the easiest monetization opportunity. There was a guy at CES 2023 who plugged this very attractive mannequin to ChatGPT, and his whole shtick was getting people to engage with it and go, wow, you can talk to it. It's actually saying stuff that's interesting. Monetizing those types of things, but it's entertainment, right? It's novelty, but can that translate into the business realm? And I do hear a lot of companies using, or at least considering using, generative AI for service. But then I also do hear a lot of companies that are POCing these applications being very cautious about it, because the RAG does not entirely get rid of all of the hallucinations. But then there's also, like, speaking of complexity, you have to have good data. You have to have good processes. And what I mean by good data, not just the quality of data, the relevance and the freshness of data. Because sometimes people know before the Gen AI does. Right.
Well, I think one of the things we should probably talk about, maybe we can do this in the next one, is the usefulness of AI in just running your PC, right? I mean, everybody's talking, right? Qualcomm.
Oh, man. I thought you were a data center guy. Now you want to go to the PC?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's an area I find fascinating. My Mac isn't very intelligent, and honestly, if Windows can become more intelligent than a Mac, I might switch.
Yeah. Well, don't.
And I've been using a Mac since 2008. So there's a lot going on there. In the role of x86 in that realm is becoming somewhat more tenuous as Qualcomm steps up their activity.
Definitely. And I think this year,
right area.
Yeah, this is going to be a good area for us to jointly explore through the course of this year. I think it's going to be a really important year for generative AI. And then I think if you and I can help our audience understand where do the pockets of value lie, then I think we can do a great service to everybody. Because right now everything is so cloudy. And that's probably the most certain thing that I hear out there at the moment, right? Other than, Nvidia selling a ton of HGX H100 appliances, AI, supercomputing appliances. So, anyways, let's definitely have that for our next episode. So AI PC folks, remember,
come back. We'll be here.
Yeah, we'll be here. Okay, so for those of you who want to get in touch with Karl, and I highly recommend that you do. Karl, you want to go ahead and tell them how to get in touch with you?
Karl.Freund at Cambrian-AI.com. Got to put that hyphen in there.
Yeah.
And you just send me an email and we can talk about how I can help. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be alive in technology again. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yes. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. Please subscribe to the Next Curve YouTube channel. Also subscribe to the Next Curve research portal at www.next- gotta have that hyphen in there, curve.com for a constant diet of the tech and industry insights that matter. And Karl, Happy New Year. I hope you have a great 2024. And, I'm looking forward to continuing to do this collaboration with you here. And we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Take care.